Good afternoon, and welcome to Mrs. Jensen's book reviews. Today is Shakespeare's Macbeth in 10 minutes or less. I'll be going over the summaries, quotes, motifs, and themes of the play. Witches and ghosts and prophecies, oh my! Before we dive into Macbeth, which is one of my favorite plays of Shakespeare's, we're going to do a quick history lesson to give you some background. You may have noticed that much of the play has to do with the supernatural. And during the time period when Macbeth was written, witchcraft was a topic of considerable interest. There was a new king, King James, and he was very interested in demonology, religion, anything to do with the supernatural or um, the divine. And so he would have very much believed that the devil was real and that he was spending his time trying to trap men and women into his power, which is why we see these witches as such a powerful force in the story. Think about the fair is foul and foul is fair, right? They use riddles to entice Banquo and Macbeth. We know the prophecies are not quite what they seem in the play. So at the time when the audience was viewing the play, this would be something that was more realistic, wouldn't be so fantastical. Our play begins, Act 1. Three witches encounter Macbeth and Banquo on the battlefield. Scotland is fighting to maintain their independence. And these witches offer prophecies. Basically, they make predictions, one in which Macbeth becomes the king and Banquo's sons become the king. Well, the only problem is there is already a king in Scotland, King Duncan, and he's very much alive. So there would be no way Macbeth could become this king until something would happen to King Duncan. Now, Macbeth is intrigued by this prediction. Banquo, however, is skeptical, as he recognizes that witches often mislead people on purpose to cause trouble. Macbeth, once a very loyal and brave soldier to the king, begins to think about ways through which he could become king. Hint, hint, murder, hint, hint, already in Act 1. Now we meet Lady Macbeth, the goat. I mean, talk about like the all-time scariest bad guy. When Lady Macbeth hears about the witch's prophecy for Macbeth, she's determined to make it come true at any cost. So she develops a plan. King Duncan is planning to visit the castle. When he gets to the castle, they will get the guards drunk, so they pass out, they'll murder the king and frame the guards. When Macbeth shows doubt, she makes fun of his manliness, basically calling him a coward, and coerces him to continue with his dark deed. She even says one of the most terrifying lines that I've ever heard in any play, in any work that I've read. She says, I have given suck, and know how tender 'tis to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out, had I so sworn as you have done to this. Basically saying, look, I'm a mother. I've given birth to a baby, and I've nursed my baby. But if I promised, as you promised to kill King Duncan, if I had promised to kill that baby, well, I would rip him right from me while I was nursing my baby and smash its brains out. I mean, come on. If this isn't gore, I don't know what is. Act 2. The act opens on the night of the planned murder. Macbeth stands outside of King Duncan's chambers and basically makes a pro-cons list. Should I kill him? Should I not kill him? He imagines a floating dagger and takes that as a sign to go through with the plan. He gets the guards drunk so they pass out, sneaks into the room, and murders King Duncan. Now, immediately after he commits the murders, we already see him showing guilt and remorse. He accidentally leaves the murder weapon. What a rookie mistake. When he re-enters the room, he kills the guards out of panic because he's so nervous that they might have accidentally heard him somehow or suspect him. We see Macbeth showing regret right away. I am afraid to think what I have done. Look on it again, I dare not. Lady Macbeth, infirm of purpose, you weakling. Give me the daggers. The sleeping and the dead are pictures. 'Tis the eye of childhood that fears a painted devil. Don't be such a baby. Only kids are afraid of the dark. Well, the guests all wake up and find King Duncan has been murdered. Macbeth claims that it was really the guards who did it, and then he murdered them out of rage because he loved the king so much. Yeah, right. Suspicious already, Macbeth. Well, we know the divine right of kings, King Duncan's two sons, Malcolm and Donalbain, would be the next in line. They fear for their own lives, so they flee out of Scotland, which leaves Macbeth to be crowned as king, just as the prediction said. As the play goes on, Macbeth becomes more and more paranoid that others are trying to steal his kingdom. Little fun fact for you about the divine right of kings. King James I also believed that kings were chosen by God, right? Kings could do anything they wanted because they were better than ordinary men and second only to God. So killing a king was a terrible sin, committing a sin against religion. And you'll notice in the play, on the day of King Duncan's murder, the ground shakes, the sky turns dark during the daytime, and the animals go wild. In fact, King Duncan's horses go crazy and eat each other. Gross. Act 3 opens up, and we find Macbeth becoming more and more paranoid that people suspect him. Remember, the witches also predicted that Banquo would not be a king, but his sons would be kings. So Macbeth begins to think maybe Banquo is not such a friend after all. And if Banquo's sons are going to steal the kingdom from me eventually, then what's the point? Why did I kill King Duncan if I'm just going to give them the throne? So he hires 3 murderers to kill Banquo and his son. Yes, 3 murderers, because one just can't do the job. And also, that's his bestie. Come on, Macbeth. The murderers do manage to kill Banquo, but luckily Fleance escapes. Back at the castle, we really see Macbeth's mental decline clearly in the banquet scene. The table is full except for a seat that he left out for Banquo. Secretly, he just sent murderers after. This is a perfect example of dramatic irony. If you think back to what dramatic irony means, we as the audience know that Macbeth killed Banquo. The characters do not know. So Banquo does show up to the dinner, after all, as a ghost. Terrified, wild Macbeth begins to yell at Banquo's ghost at the dinner table, which only he can see. The other characters are like, what the heck is up with Macbeth? There's no way this guy is fit to lead our kingdom. At this point in the play, during Act 4, Macbeth just knows he's gone too far. He can't be good anymore, right? The entire country of Scotland looks to him as a tyrant. He rules by fear. If you go against Macbeth, he's just going to kill you. He decides to return to the witches to learn more about his fate. He says this very famous line, I am in blood, stepped in so far that should I wade no more, returning where as tedious as going over. Basically saying, I've gone so far down this path that I can't turn around, right? There's no point. I've already sold my soul to the devil, so to say. There's no point in being good now. And in fact, I have even worse things planned. So when he goes to return to the witches, they show him 3 apparitions or spirits. The first is a floating head of armor, and he says, beware Macduff, beware the Thane of Fife. We know that he was suspicious of Macduff, and now he has a vendetta against him. The second apparition is a bloody woman, and she says, none of women born shall harm Macbeth. So again, he cannot be killed by anyone who was born of a woman. And who wasn't born of a woman? So this gives Macbeth great confidence. And finally, until the forest to Dunsane Hill, none shall come against Macbeth. Basically saying until the forest can march to your castle, you don't have anything to fear. Macbeth at this point is feeling good, right? He knows he's ruthless. He knows he's evil, but he thinks he can't be beat. He sends killers to take care of Macduff because the spirits warned him, beware Macduff. However, when he arrives at the castle, Macduff is not there. The killers instead murder Macduff's wife and all of his children. Act 5 opens up and we find a crazy Lady Macbeth. She's walking around. She's sleepwalking. She keeps washing her hands, trying to get the blood off. Out, damned spot, out. Blood on your hands, metaphorically and literally, meaning guilty, right? She sees this blood, but she cannot get her hands clean. Meanwhile, an army is gathering outside of Macbeth's castle. Outside, near the woods, the English army is marching, led by Malcolm, the rightful heir to the throne, Malcolm's uncle, and Macduff. Birnam Wood, doesn't that sound familiar? Think back to the apparitions. Malcolm and the English army decide to use cover to surprise Macbeth, so they take branches and hide themselves in camouflage. It looks like the forest is moving towards the castle. Uh-oh. A messenger comes to Macbeth with sad news. Lady Macbeth is dead and rumored suicide. This is never confirmed in the play. It's just something that's alluded to. Macbeth sees the trees moving, and suddenly he realizes, man, these witches were twisting and manipulating him, right? Although there are glimmers of truth in the predictions, everything is not what it seems. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. But he decides to fight anyway. Better to go down swinging. He says this very famous monologue in this act. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard from no more. It's a tale told by an idiot, full of sound of fury, signifying nothing. Essentially saying, life is meaningless. It's but a shadow. It's a poor actor that struts about the stage, and then he disappears, and no one hears from him again. So he's realizing all of his actions, everything he did to become king is for nothing, right? In the end, he's going to die anyway. Goodbye, Macbeth. Macbeth enters the battlefield still feeling pretty good because the witches told him no man born of woman could harm him. Uh-oh. Then he learns Macbeth was a C-section and technically is not born of a woman. Rut-row, Macbeth. Looks like you can be killed after all. He quickly realizes that he has been played by the witches. Macduff and Macbeth fight, and Macduff wins. Macbeth, the tyrant, is defeated, and Malcolm is once again crowned the rightful King of Scotland. Hurrah! Let's get to some motifs and themes. Some motifs you might have noticed in the play. Reoccurring symbols. Blood on your hands representing guilt. Light and dark imagery. Light is good, dark is evil. Sleep. Both the destruction of innocence, right? Lady Macbeth cannot sleep. She can't find peace. Also, sleep meaning death, right? The great sleep. The supernatural, the visions, the floating dagger, the witches, hallucinations of Banquo. Some key themes to think about. Can too much ambition lead to destruction? Right? If Macbeth had never gone to try to steal the kingdom, would he be in the same position? Things not always being what they seem, right? Fair is foul and foul is fair. The balance between fate and free will. Who is in control of the destiny? Is it the witches who predicted Macbeth's destiny, or did Macbeth create his own destiny based on what the witches said? That's it. Stupid witches. In the end, Macbeth is a tragic hero, right? His flaw led to his demise. He was too ambitious, too greedy, too ruthless. Hopefully that helped, and you guys can use this to finish up your reading journals. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, that is it for Macbeth. Thank you for listening along.